please let me start by acknowledging that we're here gathered on the lands of the Kaurna people and pay respects to elders past, present and emerging, and acknowledging the First Nations people in the audience. It's a real privilege to have Meryl Ryan here in Adelaide overseeing the installation of the New Exuberance exhibition, which opens at JamFactory tomorrow night. Meryl very kindly took a phone call about a year ago to take the reins of a project that had been started before, but to kind of rebirth and create something new and special from some foundations has been an extraordinary journey over the 12 months, and I know that the team have enjoyed working with Meryl very, very much. We've asked Meryl to talk a little bit about her background experience working collaboratively in the lead up to this exhibition, so it's a rich story, and one I'm looking forward to hearing again. Thank you, Meryl.
Okay, I live and work on Awabakal country, and I'm a guest today on the ancestral lands of the Kaurna people. I would like to pay my respects to their elders, past and present and emerging, and to all First Nation people's connection to country, culture and community. I'd also like to thank you all for sparing some of your time today. As Brian said, they've asked me here, JamFactory, to introduce myself and some of my background, what's led me to this point and the New Exuberance project. And as he said, it's actually almost a year ago to the day since I received the invitation to work with them. I've known Brian professionally for many years, and I'm convinced everything he touches has quality written all over it. I'm sure you'd all agree. In addition, the commission was quite unique, as he explained. I picked it up when it was partially developed. It had been conceived pre-COVID, so it was actually quite a long time in the abeyance. And so it came with a clear set of challenges, but also promised access to an established team culture, including working collaboratively with First Nations curator Carly Takari Dodge. Wrong one? Yep, there she is. I thrive on collaboration in the broadest sense. It's the engine of my practice. Consulting with specialists and expertise to expand knowledge and connections. Brainstorming, which, if you're open-minded and flexible enough, adds other perspectives, helps reset creative thinking and develop fresh ideas. There's also confidence gained through shared decision-making, from the negotiations with makers and the selection of works, through to the consideration of spatial dynamics, the design of a plinth or the distance between one screw and the next on the wall. Added to the already cooperative nature of New Exuberance, the project promised another opportunity for me to work alongside longtime associate Stephen Goddard. Stephen will feature here in review of previous work, along with other creatives who've enabled past projects. These enablers, from artists, writers, fellow curators, collectors, museums and gallerists to designers, builders, techies and installers, have been generous over the years in working towards strong results. And as most of you know, the demands are often testing. Well, today, I want to acknowledge the importance of all players. Following Jordan Gogo's example, I even tried to compile slides with lists of names, but it started to look like the film credits of Lord of the Rings, so I abandoned that one. So these guys will stand in for everyone regardless of mention on all projects. An appreciation for the contribution of others started very early for me. My academic and practice background began in music theory and performance, followed by art history, aesthetics and Russian language. I still count the wry wisdom of my postgraduate supervisor and mentor, Robert Dessay, as an ongoing influence. Given this background with a side order of theatre, it's probably no surprise I've developed an enthusiasm for interdisciplinary practice. After studies, my work in publishing and the arts sector in London established a respect for collaborative effort in general. This respect was further entrenched in 2 Indian Ocean crossings. Our crew of 4 was entirely dependent on teamwork for survival while sailing a modest working yacht from the Seychelles via Chagos Archipelago to Sri Lanka and again via Comoros to Africa. As a maker of exhibitions, I'm most interested in thematic multidisciplinary projects. I've some what I call rules to show by. Are there conversations across the space, for instance, between the works? Is there engaging story? Are there connections through the formal aspects of the works? Is there a diversity of mediums to generate diversity experience? And has there been a respectful consultation with all involved? Together, these conditions offer the viewer a richer experience. As I've said elsewhere before, alongside curiosity, the key curatorial driver for me is that perfect blend of an unhurried appreciation of the moment and alertness to stabs of narrative that Dessay has identified as the makings of a fine essay. In other words, it is both the here and now perception of a work combined with the awareness of what it brings to the context of the whole. An exhibition is essentially a multi-dimensional essay. The pace and rhythm, the dynamics of the elements, the works themselves, the spaces between, the lighting, the sound, the installation mechanisms, wall colours and signage, all conspiring in the delivery of a polyphonic thesis. So back to the noble enablers. This presentation amounts to a homage to them. Although leapfrogging through just a few of the many past projects, I want to acknowledge all of the organisations and countless individuals I've been lucky enough to work alongside. I may have always had a curatorial role, but I don't make exhibitions on my own. This is the amazing Marley Houston, who I've worked many, many times with, and Joe O'Toole, lovely they are. I will consult my notes and clock so I don't digress too much, which those of you who know me know I do a lot. There are a lot of images, so we might just sacrifice a few and skim through quickly. Present Company was one of my last shows before I resigned as Senior Curator at Museum of Art and Culture, or Mac Yapang, formerly Lake Macquarie City Art Gallery, on Awabakal country. Almost all of the following projects were staged there. The exhibition featured 9 celebrated artists raised in the Hunter region, but based elsewhere, most overseas. There were a couple of real install demands. A freestanding purpose-built screen to affect Wanneroo creative Damien Smith, dancing on the floor, for instance. Garments by Romance Was Born, hovering in space. Trent Park's pristine images of cockatoos in flight. Sorry, I disconcerted, there's an optical illusion. I thought half it was missing. They had impossibly sensitive surfaces and they had to be pinned to a wall. It's just a nightmare. It was like charcoal. Absolutely gorgeous work. And a reconstructed platform with sensors to activate piano keys in Ian Byrne's interactive installation step. Present Company, like most of the MAC projects, was installed within a working week with that's deinstall as well as install, with rarely more than 4 resourceful people on the floor, and at no time was there a designer, techie or builder in the home team. Us was one of 3 concurrent exhibitions marking the redevelopment and rebranding of MAC as Mac Yapang in 2019. Typically for me, the exhibition moved across contemporary installation, sculpture, video, painting, photography and performance. The artworks look to the big picture. Between them, they broached universal issues, the beauty of difference, the desire for love and a sense of belonging, the influence of fear and challenge of courage, the power of familial bonds, the levelling and common language of music, movement and emotions, and a concern for the natural world we all depend on. Ideas resonated throughout the space to suggest meaning around what was happening now to the planet, to us. The demands of the install were extensive, not least of which was the construction of a room for Angelica Mercedes' 4-channel video piece, Citizens Band. I don't know if anyone's seen it, it's a stunning work and very moving. This exhibition also benefited a great deal from the involvement and support, both literal and virtual, of the artists, gallerists and collectors. This latter point was also true of Look Closely Now, a deeply satisfying project featuring disciplines ranging from jewellery, ceramics and textiles to drawing, sculpture and installation. Based on regard for the seductive power of curiosity, this exhibition rewarded the inquisitive. Things were not what they convincingly seemed, and they were fragile. A rusty Coke can was made of nutmeg, sneakers of blue tack, soap made of porcelain, and a tea set made of soap, and flags, hanging T-shirts, and a crumpled hoodie, all of marble. One of the favourites was Susan Collis's overalls with embroidered paint splatters and chair with hand-drawn wood grain. So think about that. So persuasive was the work that the morning of the opening, the cleaner was confused by the untidy signage wall. It's true, she asked me, did she need to be doing something? Mediums teamed up with a subversion of expectation to talk about value, perception, and trust. Consequently, the promise of uncovering something surprising gained momentum, each new revelation feeling like a first-time perceived secret to be broadcast and shared. For several of the artists, games with visual perception were at the service of social and political issues central to 21st century life, like war and substance abuse. In Blacktown Dreaming, for instance, 2 beds with sinister mattresses, one formed by thousands of syringes, which I did with the Aboriginal reference group installed, and another dozens of spray paint cans, betrayed any promise of rest and sanctuary to reference a time artist Jason Wing spent working with young people in crisis. And Alex Seaton's ongoing installation as of today comprised a simple grid of folded flags, each one a marble monument to the loss of an Australian soldier in Afghanistan. You saw that slide before with the folded flags, they're all marble. Totally convinced people coming into the gallery it was just a bunch of towels before they came in. So the fraught subject of war was at the centre of the deeply moving and important project Invisible, the First Peoples and War, curated with the celebrated artist Ioane Scarce in consultation with the Aboriginal Reference Group, or ARG. It was distinguished by many people working together. The ARG was central to all aspects of exhibition and public program and curatorial decision-making around First Nations content at Lake Mac. Invisible prioritised the perspective of Aboriginal men and women and confronted the deeper issues they have dealt with around conflict situations from the frontier to the front. Scheduled to coincide with the centenary of the Gallipoli campaign, it acknowledged some difficult truths alongside stories of courage, resilience, faith and pride. The ARG also offered the wider community a way to participate with personal responses to the subject and the exhibition. In weeks of workshops, the ARG designed, printed and cut yellow paper poppies, which became part of an interactive installation. This included writing table, pencils, adhesive and a journal. Visitors were encouraged to select a poppy, inscribe it with a related memory or message and fix it to the wall. Actually went around 2 walls. Longer messages were left in the journal. Every aspect of the exhibition was shared and it was a real honour to be part of it. Since 2015, I've also worked on about 5 collaborative exhibition projects with the Lockup, or TLU, at the 19th Century Police Station, now operating as a contemporary art space in Newcastle. It is a labyrinth of discrete rooms, including 7 preserved prison cells and an exercise yard, all with graffiti, bars and strong personality, and 3 conventional rooms. A unique and distinctive context for creative installation, it now has a national profile and 2 dedicated staff members. Sydney-based writer Naomi Riddle and I are currently midway through a curatorial commission for a biennial series there based on the elements. All Things Are Water launched the series in December 2019. I'm a thalassophile from way back, so water tends to infiltrate my life and work. And it's not just the ocean, I'm fascinated with the substance, salt or fresh. It is both surface and depth, formless and strong, healer and killer. You can't hold it and it's capricious, always on the verge of transformation, moving between vapour, liquid and ice. So I can't resist the theme. The selected works, to quote Naomi's catalogue essay, spoke to both loss and hope, often at the same time. They presented water as memorial, as romantic ideal, as infinite time, and as poem. The exhibition included a residency in which Michaela Gleave created the site-specific work, The Radius of Infinity. Ever dedicated, Michaela herself installed a sprinkler system over the yard to fill the space with a delicate mist. A theatre spotlight pulsed with Morse code signals that spelt out an equation relating to the extent of the knowable universe. As light moved through the vapour, the rays turned it into stars. It was transporting. Still on water, but back to Mac, Lake was conceived to connect with the gallery's lakefront site and the narrative legacy such waterways continue to afford artists. Midway through the development phase, however, I discovered Malcolm Smith's upcoming show, The Lake, at the Australian Centre for Photography, everyone's nightmare. There were some crossovers with selection of artists too, so we negotiated to fine-tune the Lake Mac version and collaborate on this new show with a subtext of the Australian Gothic. Still bodies of water are by nature unfathomable. For these artists, the lake was no field of recreation, but a strange and secretive place, haunted with the artist's own feelings about the environment, cultural history, home, and the self. Again, this was a multidisciplinary project with mostly new work. It involved not only Malcolm and I active on the floor, but also 4 of the artists participating in the installation, all of which meant there was a lot of consultation around spatial dynamics and lighting. The effect was gorgeous, immersive and dramatic. Its polished mix of the tough, the poetic and the witty made it very popular with audiences. There have been other water-themed shows, Cold Front, Swell, Float Watercraft in Art, and the Magic Board. Here, artists, most of them surfers or skateboarders themselves, reflected on the experience of the board in context or on the bigger feelings beyond. Artist Brett McMahon worked on the vintage surfboard loans with collector Tony Brown, and staffer Rob Clearworth worked some wizardry on the mounting devices for the front wall. Your own Jerry Wed's there. I love this one too. As I said, with its complex dualities and endless aesthetic range, the slippery nature of water is a potent subject. In Where There Is Water, the metaphysical and literal associations, the enigmatic imagery and mesmeric sounds of underwater were also mined to describe survival, emotional conditions, and the otherworldly. Here's something for you, another front wall challenge like board, but this was thousands of nylon tubes. Maria Fernandez rendering of solid rain. I'll whiz by these partnerships with institutions that have been particularly rewarding. This was one with Powerhouse Museum and Jean Sherman. Very generously, Jean had donated part of her collection to the Powerhouse, and they'd recently shown it, so we were able to liaise with them to get some of it up and do our own version. So it was very beautiful, and it was alongside 2 other shows which we managed to put on. I like the idea of working program around the table with the team. It's a really good way of making this sort of conversation across space happen. Shadow play, all about light and its partner dark. This pairing, we had the Australian Design Centre, I think it was Object Show, Les Blakebur's Ceramics. And that was the visual links between the drama of shadow play and the disciplines in shadow play, and the ceramics in the Blakebur's show worked really well. And a final partnership project, this one with curator Kent Buchanan and Western Plains Cultural Centre. This exhibition was both entertaining and thought-provoking and a real joy to work on. We explored how the animal kingdom offers artists opportunities to work with symbolic, often fantastical ideas alongside aspects of daily life. In almost all of the preceding exhibition projects, Stephen Goddard has worked on the catalogues, many of which won awards, including 3 Best in Show honours from Museums Australia. I've put them down in front if you want to have a look, including Book Club. For Book Club, in fact, Stephen joined the group of selected artists to acknowledge the power of books as subject and material for art. More than any other found or lost object, the book was a uniquely complex, characterful motif. Collections of tales, truths and histories in the written form as books, ledgers and libraries promise the disclosure of confidences and imaginative ideas, facts and pathways to enlightenment. All great stuff for artists. I Spy grew out of a conversation with Stephen over breakfast in Melbourne and a discovery that we were both fascinated by windows and doors. At times, they beguile like portals to the imaginative realm. At others, they are more earthbound, culturally reflective, or voyeuristic. We started musing over how contemporary artists might use them as visual or conceptual symbols, and this in turn triggered our first co-curation. In an envisaging of what might be on the other side, or the stark reality of what is observed, I Spy recognised the compelling nature of the thresholds we continually encounter. Our subsequent co-curation focused on the happiness we have when we don't know we're having it. The playful spelling or misspelling of the title being direct borrow from the title and intent in the 2006 film version of Chris Gardner's memoir, The Pursuit of Happiness. With humour and playfulness and enchantment, the multi-layered yet economical works in this exhibition looked at humankind's blinkered hankering for a picture-perfect happiness in an increasingly demanding world. Probably never thought I'd get here. And so, Stephen and I have just completed working together on another project, this time a touring show with Stephen directing the exhibition and catalogue design. New Exuberance was conceived before the pandemic and, as I said, partially developed during the ensuing years of lockdown and isolation by the JamFactory. The original aim was to focus on the innovative creative work revitalising contemporary textile design in this country. Given our global moment to stop and take stock, it has further evolved to reflect on the diversity, optimism and progressive approaches gaining traction in Australian textile-based practices today. I read somewhere that exuberance, curiosity and hope are things that keep us from giving up. It's certainly true of my practice, and in some ways I think this is the spirit that underpins New Exuberance. Cultural generosity and a sharper awareness of the complexities of the individual are finding platforms in design, art and fashion. There was a consistent emphasis on hope and positive change, for instance, at Australian Fashion Week last May. Gender fluidity, adaptive fashion, diversity, size inclusivity, upcycling, sustainability and acknowledgement of back-of-house support were all on the agenda. Several of the Fashion Week talk sessions came back to at least one of these issues, especially collaboration. The grand finale of Fashion Week, in fact, launched First Nation Fashion and Design's Future of Fashion initiative. 7 collaborative works, thematically curated to reflect on the climate emergency, were revealed in the FNFD runway finale. The project had asked First Nations designers to work one-on-one with a non-Indigenous designer collaborator. New Exuberance exhibitors Paul McCann, Grace Lillian Lee, Romance Was Born, Nixie Killick and Your Day Spirited and Go-Go's were among the field. It was a knockout. Despite the great variety of work in New Exuberance, Collaboration is one of the recurring themes. Jordan Gogos, creator of the label Your Day in Spirit and Gogos, has made collaboration a mantra. Romance was born, Grace Lillian Lee, Lisa Walp and Ingrid Werner, Kate Just, Nixie Killick, Wawa Australia, and the Social Studio all have a history of collaborative work. I even found Vita Cochran in Hannah Gartside's Melbourne studio when I called in, lending skillful help to Gartside in meeting a deadline with a major textile-based work. Apparently, Vita is well known for this kind of support and generosity. Mentorship is central to the multifaceted practice of Grace Lillian Lee. She does this on two main fronts. Firstly, in direct collaborative ventures with First Nations communities, and also through her far-reaching activities with fashion performances, and now as founder of FNFD. Importantly, the work of First Nations artists and designers from the top end and remote Australia is collaborative within, with artists working together to design and print textiles and occasionally make things together. Increasingly, it is also being sought for partnership ventures elsewhere with First Nations designers and others to collaborate on homewares, furniture, projects, and fashion. Textiles permeate every aspect of our lives and bring a resonance that all the artists in New Exuberance differently celebrate. There's much to be said about the individual works, from Nina Walton's Threads in Space wall installation to Jemima Wyman's translucent protest zone curtain, and about the stories shared from the ancient and timeless to 80s suburban milk bar, the current moment, and onto virtual reality. But it opens tomorrow, so you can see it for yourselves. Throughout the process of realising this exhibition, there has been a willingness to work together on every level, from the exceptionally generous exhibitors and the writers to the catalogue team at Wakefield and the staff at the JamFactory. Over the years, I've learned that the most rewarding work cannot be done on one's own. It's an ensemble practice. There's the audience for a start. And if you want to have an audience, again, to quote Robert de Say, you have to become some kind of storyteller to pique viewer interest, coax out fresh associations through a provocative mix of disciplines and ideas and have them stay a while. So yes, JamFactory asked me here to talk about my practice and background today, but really that means it's all about you, my colleagues in the industry, and how grateful I am for your company. Thank you.